So let's kick off. Let's kick off in cinema. I will kick off in cinema with the 355. Now, this is a film starring Jessica Chastain, Lupita Nyongo, Penelope Cruz, Diane Kruger, and I keep Bingbing. Bingbing fan. It's a Chinese actress,
Yeah,
but a Chinese actress. Her
I
first name
think
is
Shawnee,
Bingbing.
our other Oppo, he likes sort of Bingbing fans, doesn't he?
Yeah, I think her name is Bingbing Fan because I keep getting it. I keep thinking Bing Bing Leap. I think it's Bingbing Fan, and yes, it's a film starring them. You might have the eagle eye amongst you would have spotted that those are all women. Now, this is a spy movie it's a spy movie that has women in its main cast, and this is a film. I mean, we spoke about it last week, and Sharon, you were lamenting the fact that you didn't like the idea of just making a film and just shoving women in there as the main, because if as the main protagonist, just to be like, yeah, we're women and we're leading the film. You said you didn't like that. You said
Yeah,
you weren't
that
sure
doesn't appeal
who.
to me at all.
Yeah, you said you
And I
weren't sure.
don't know who that is aimed at. Is
Yeah,
it like, yeah, sisterhood, let's support the sisters and yeah. And I'm like, no, thank you. If you're making films on my behalf as a woman, it's like I find it slightly patronising. I mean, I
yes,
think women have fought for their place in the intelligence agency. So I haven't seen the film. They have fought for their place in security forces, in the police forces around the world,
yeah,
and they've earned those places. And so someone to come along and say, "Hey, we're going to put an all-woman team out there," unless my history has just like been lacking, there aren't all-women teams in the intelligence agency. So just to create that for the purpose of a film is like undermines the hard work and the sheer graft and the sheer guts it's taken for women to hold their own in a male-dominated society by suddenly saying, "Hey, look, all the girls are doing it for themselves." It's like, no, they haven't been. They've fought to get where they are, to work alongside men, not to be told, "Hey, look, we're going to give you your own little niche thing." No, they haven't had any favours done for them because they're women. So why make films to say, "Hey, all the girls are going to do it together"? It's like, no, they haven't been doing it like that. And that's not how the world has worked or does work. So please don't present this film as like a act of like women, empowerment when it's
mm.
nothing of the sort.
Uh, I'm not sure I have anything else to add, and that's going to be 3 out of 5 stars.
That's
No, no, but obviously spoken from your point of view as a former police
someone
operative.
involved I was a civilian in the police, but yeah, I worked in the police and I saw
Yeah,
how hard women fought from when I first started, having one woman per shift, possibly one woman per police station.
yeah,
Where I know at one station on the Isle of Wight, they put a request in, "Can we have a WPC, please,
yeah,
to do certain jobs?" To then, I've got friends of mine who, when they join the police now, there's no what those obstacles are gone. They can be in any role, they can do
yeah,
any job. They're in senior officers. They are through every rank in the police force, and they
yeah,
got there by sheer hard graft, not
yeah.
because you know to make any political points. They fought their way there.
Well, you see now, and I think that there is a good film to be made in that. And the first time this film was announced, the 355, because the reason it's called the 355 is because during the American Civil War, there is a well-known female spy who did a lot of good work in during the American Civil War, but nobody knows who she was. Nobody knows what her name is. She was just referred to by the code 355. And when I first heard about this film, I thought, ooh, this is going to be a story kind of about that and about this and about the legacy and everything like that. And I was really interested in that film. And last week, when you were complaining about what you thought this film was going to be, and
Yeah.
you were like, "Who wants to see that film?" And I was like, "Well, I,
Another
I want to see
Charlie's
that film."
Angels,
Yeah,
potentially,
yeah, yeah. It's like I want to see that film. I want to see women on screen kicking butt. I want to see that. And it's funny that you mentioned Charlie's Angels because I did have that down as one of the films. Don't worry, I'm still here. I did have that down as one of the films that I was going to name check during this because
Yes,
Charlie's
compare
Angels.
and contrast.
Yeah, well, Charlie. The thing with Charlie's Angels, the latest iteration of Charlie's Angels, directed by Elizabeth Banks, starring Kristen Stewart, was that was made to be almost like a meta commentary on the state of women. I would say probably in Hollywood primarily, but in
Yeah.
the world today, and a lot of the things that was made in that film, it was kind of like they didn't try and hide it. That look, we're not, the bad guy here isn't somebody who wants to blow up the world. The bad guy here is the patriarchy. The bad guy here is the way women's bodies have been used. They made no bones about that. Now, this film is more like somebody, it's kind of like, okay, so you're talking about the fact that women fought to stack up beside men, to fight beside men.
Yeah.
But if you watch the films from God knows however long, you always had all these boys on adventures in which the women were doing nothing but making the tea in the background.
Yeah, they were the bird in it, or they were the support staff.
Yeah. So, and now this film plays like somebody saw one of those films and thought, you know what? I want to be there. I want to be the hero. I want to be that, and I have not seen that. So essentially, this is my chance to do it. So I'm just going to put all the women in those roles that would usually go wrong. And so let me put it this way: you could flip this film, you could gender flip this film, and you could have the only difference I think that you would have is that with the man would be the lone wolf cop. He would just be on his own, and he'll be like, "Yeah, I'm a renegade. I'm gonna go do this. I'm gonna be a one-man army and do it." But when you have it like with a woman in charge, what you have is you have the sisterhood, and it's kind of like played into that. And those are the tropes. So the trope for the man is that he's a lone wolf. The trope for the woman is that she has her sisters with her. And apart from that, the film is very. This film is like paint by numbers.
Okay.
I'll tell you. Let me put it this way, right? This film starts off with an aerial shot over like a whole bunch of trees, and I just looked at that and maybe I've watched too many films, but I looked at that and I thought, okay, if this is the kind of film that Sharon is complaining about, and I think it is, in my head I just said Bogota, Colombia. And then as the character went up, as I said that, and then the caption shows up on screen, 5 miles outside Bogota, Colombia, and I just went, "Oh my god, it's gonna be one of those films." And from that moment, this film was working hard uphill, was running uphill to try, because I was like, "Oh no, it's one of those films," and they do all of the cliches that you would have expected in a, I don't know, Stallone movie in the 80s or Bruce Willis action film, where it goes from there and it goes into a scene that the only reason that scene is there is like you have Sebastian Stan and Jessica Chastain, and it's kind of like a lovey-dovey scene, and you're like, what the? I thought this was supposed to be a spy movie. You're supposed to be, what the heck is this doing here? And have you heard of the term fridging?
No.
Okay, so fridging is a trope that appears it started off in comics. Because it started off in comics where it was a Green Lantern comic where essentially the Green Lantern's girlfriend was killed and put in a fridge. And it's a trope that shows up in things where you have a male character, and they have the male character and he has a wife or girlfriend or something like that. And the wife or girlfriend is only there to be killed so that the man has an excuse to go and do something.
Yeah.
So in John Wick, for instance, you could say that they fridged the dog. Yeah, but it happens over and over again, and there's such blatant examples.
Rambo Last Blood is a good example of that.
Yeah. Essentially, it happens over and over again. In action cinema, there are instances of fridging where you have a female character that is so badly sketched, and the only reason she's there is to die, so that the male character has an excuse to feel something.
Give him a reason to be angry. Yeah.
Yes. And there are when I say about paint by numbers, so you have 5 characters in this, or 5 female characters, and there's there's characters that they introduce into each one of their lives, and you're just you're just watching it going, okay, he's dead. Yep, he's dead. Oh yeah, he's not gonna last to the end of the film. Oh, and there was even one that it showed up, and I was like, okay, he is going to die, but you're never going to see the body, and he's gonna come back as the bad guy. I said this in the first 5 minutes of the film. Boom! I was right. So it's just so paint by numbers. It's so kind of like there's even lines. There's lines where somebody says something and someone's about to reply, and I'm saying the line before the person has said it because the script is just that basically written. Yeah, is that obviously written?
Yeah.
There's some things that, okay, Sean usually of this parish, people who are listening and are paying attention online are noticing that Sean is not here. So Sean, if you're listening, Sean, stay safe in Thailand.
We'll see you
in
action.
Yeah, we know you're missing. But there's scenes in this that made me turn into Sean with his whole, why would you do that? That this film has, these people are supposed to be spies. They're supposed to be highly trained spies from around the world. It has the least secure safe houses ever. Every single safe house in this film is found within 5 minutes and broken into like the walls are made of paper. It is just so, it's kind of like they decided, for the plot, we need this to happen right now, and therefore we're going to ignore everything else. And there's also a bit because they're supposed to be on the run. There's this idea of them supposing that these spies are supposed to be on the run. But I'm like, then how did you get access to a cargo plane? If you're supposed to, how did you get that Benz? How did you get all that equipment? If you're supposed to be, there's just stuff that doesn't make sense.
Surely
and it's
you'd
like
be cut off from all of that.
That's what you'd think. You'd think you'd be cut off from all of that, and then they commit the sin that you, Sharon, are really, really dead set against. They commit the sin, which is that they now try and wrap a whole feminist thing around it that does not feel earned. Yeah. And I know I'm saying that as a man watching a film starring a whole bunch of women, but I honestly don't think that the feminist message that they try and wrap around the whole thing feels earned. It feels tacked on. It feels like Charlie's Angels did this way better because all the way through it was telling you this is what we're doing here. Yeah. And there's nothing of that. It's just like a straight down the middle action flick which is competently enough made, and when they try and tack on the feminist message, I'm like, what the? Where did that come? You did not earn that. No. And yeah, so yeah, essentially, and then this film ended, and when it said directed by Simon Kinberg, it made me think, I think I'm going to stop watching Simon Kinberg films because he also directed X-Men Dark Phoenix, which is...
Okay, I didn't see that one.
Yeah, that is...
that was Sophie Turner, wasn't it,
That was Sophie Turner. It also starred Jessica Chastain in that one. But I think it was just so straight down the middle. It was essentially, you finish watching X-Men Dark Phoenix, and the reaction was, meh. And it was it was there. It was kind of, I expected that to happen. That happened. It wasn't particularly...
You get the feeling that, the X-Men has become a spent force because of films that have been a bit,
Oh yeah, X-Men, that version of X-Men is done. It's the next time X-Men are showing up, it's going to be Marvel doing something hopefully good with it. So yeah, all in all, this film, I mean, I think it is reasonable enough. I would give it a 3 out of 5, but it just, oh good Lord, it sucked it out of me. It sucked it out of me. I just kind of like, by the time I finished, I was like, oof. And the problem is, what gets me is because you have Diane Kruger probably gives her character the most because there's a whole thing about she's a German sort of spy, and there's a whole thing about the fact that her dad was a double agent for the Russians, and she actually turned her dad in because she found out that he was working for the Russians, and there was that whole thing, and so there's a little bit of something in there. I think the actors are good, like Penelope Cruz. Penelope Cruz plays a very sort of like. Everybody else in the film is like, yeah, let's go. We're going to shoot people in the head. Penelope Cruz just spends most of the film going, I just want to go home. Why did you let me go home? And so I think that they are good. I just really, really wish that they had been served by a better story and a better made film that just didn't have so many holes you could drive a bus through and just wasn't so predictable from the off. I mean, the fact that I call that the opening scene, they were trying to set it in Bogota, Colombia before the thing even showed up on screen, it's just so hackneyed. 3 out of 5.
Yeah, it's too much signposting.
Yeah, 3 out of 5 at the very much, and I'm going to stop there and pass over to you, Sharon, because I am disappointed, mostly that everything you said last week was spot on. And everything you said last week was...
I'm sorry about that, because I don't want to hate these films, but my experience of watching them has been like, oh, thanks on behalf of womankind for your patronage.
I just it just felt like a standard 80s thriller that had just decided we're going to replace the lone wolf all-American hero with an international. There's some things that you can see are kind of worthy, but it kind of feels as if oh, we're being worthy here, therefore you must watch it. And I'm like, no, tell a good
No.
story. Tell a good
But that's
story
it.
in a
I
good
think all the
way.
way along, my grumble has been about anything that has got like a feminist slant is like where like one of my gripes has been like when they sort of feminizing a lot of male characters. It's like write decent roles for women. Do
Yes.
that instead of taking a role that you know is popular, know is well established, and then just casting a woman in it as if to say, "Hey, look, we've cast a woman now.
Mm.
That's okay then." It's like just write decent roles for women. Just do that. Instead of just trying to take a male role or male films and then saying, we're just going to put women in it and that's okay, isn't it? It's like,
Yeah.
no, it's not okay. Just write decent roles for women.
Yeah.
That's what we want.
From a point of the view of the actors, like Jessica Chastain is also a producer on the film. I can kind of understand, but like for instance, me growing up as a black kid in Nigeria in the 80s and seeing all these action films where it was predominantly a white guy doing.
Yeah.
If I had become an actor and I'd gone to the point where I'll be like, the kids of my youth, oh yeah, I want to see a film where it's like, and if they came and they offered me like Commando, where I would play the Arnold Schwarzenegger character, but now he's black. I'll jump at it. I mean, the film's not going to be any better than Commando. Probably it's going to be worse, but I can imagine why I would be attracted to that. And so, also, if you say, "Oh, we're going to make all these sort of like, these movies that you could see almost like Dirty Dozen, but with women," and you're like, "Oh yeah, cool. I never saw women in that role. I know I would want. I can understand that." But the way it's done is just so ham-fisted, and the fact that the way they even bring China into it is so kind of, how like you have this whole thing where every film ends in China now because they're trying to get the Chinese market. It feels so cynical when they bring China into it. So cynical when they bring, like, you could look at that and you could just sort of say the only reason they have China in this film is because they want China's money. That's the only reason they have Chinese characters in this. But but anyway, okay. So okay, let's move on. Let's move on to Mother